Hey everybody, it's Chris from Chris Beat Cancer, and today I'm interviewing someone that I've really been looking forward to interviewing for some time. Her name is Sunshine Hook, and 3 years ago, her son Tyler was diagnosed with stage 4 medulloblastoma, that's brain cancer, and was treated and sent home to die. And today, he is alive and well and cancer free.
But they misdiagnosed him quite a few times because we went back a couple more times. And the third time, I think it was, they finally did a CT scan, um, and they found the largest tumor that was at the back of his skull. And then they had to biopsy the tumor and see if it was cancerous. And it just kind of took off after the biopsy, and they got the results back. Then it was a rush, and do something, we need to act quick. So when they biopsied it and found out that it was cancerous, they were pushing for us to go to St. Jude's because they said that was the best option for him. Um, and so he was kind of whisked away, him and my husband. They flew out to Le Bonheur to get more brain done to try to remove the tumors that could be removed by surgery.
How many were there?
I think there were 16 altogether.
16 tumors?
Yes, there was the biggest one, and then there were smaller ones, and then there was two on the spine that had traveled down the spine. They were smaller. Um, but yeah, there was quite a bit in his small little head. So of course we were very scared when, and we were very rushed, but we felt like the doctors had our son's best interest in mind. My husband went with him, and I stayed with the other children. We have 5 children total. Um, he went with him and did the brain surgery, um, and had radiation almost immediately after that. He had six. I actually have the protocol thing that he went through right here because I try to forget these details. Um,
Let me ask you this before you get into it. Were they able to remove all of the tumors or just some of them?
no, just some of them. A lot of them were in spots that were very dangerous.
I understand.
So they were only able to, do a little bit.
So they
I
took
think,
some tumors out, they did some
right,
radiation, and then they did chemotherapy.
right.
Okay.
And it was 6 weeks of high dose radiation in spinal. So it went all the way down his spine because they said that because he had the tumors that went down there, they had to radiate that area also. Um, so he did radiation with my husband there, and I stayed at home. And luckily, I had people send me websites like chrisbeatcancer.com to keep me company while I was at home by myself. While I was, as a mother, you want to do anything and everything for your child. Um, and you feel helpless when they get a cancer diagnosis because, I wasn't even able to be there with them when they went through radiation. So, um, I was busy studying up natural things while my husband was away with Tyler doing radiation. And it was really hard, to say the least, to be away from them and to also know that they were going through this alone, kind of. I'm gonna start crying.
It's okay.
uh, it's just hard to talk about the
Yeah.
past, and when he went through the chemo, and um, I don't mean to jump ahead or get ahead of myself, but um, when he went through the chemo, he was supposed to do 7 months, and he was only able to do 5 months of the chemo. The fifth round almost took his life. It took away his speech, and um, and he just started going downhill. Like he had trouble breathing. They were giving him antibiotics constantly, saying that, just in case we're going to give him these antibiotics, just in case he has an infection, or just in case, it was always like pumping him full of antibiotics. I never understood that part. That's when he was sent home on hospice. They said there was nothing more they could do. The cancer was coming back, and they had already hit it with the strongest chemos they had. And that felt like an open door. I know it's the weirdest thing to say, but that felt like a door that no man could open, because now we could control things that I had been researching. And I had been praying the whole time that he was going through treatment. And I forgot to tell that I went up there when he was going through chemo. I was able to be there, thank God. Um, but when he was going through that treatment, I just had to keep praying and praying and praying, because it was the hardest thing I ever had to witness. Him just deteriorating and needing blood transfusions, and getting to the part where he was skin and bones and looked like a child from a third world country, except for he didn't have the big belly. But he was so skinny, it was scary, and then he got so pale white, right when they were going to send him home. We almost thought he wasn't going to make the trip home. But, I'm just thankful that all of that is in the past, and he is doing very well, and he's gained his weight back, and he's cancer free. That is the best part of this whole horrid. But, a lot of people, when they're sent home on hospice, I think they would give up and just throw the towel in. And I am so excited about this interview, because I people hope to not just throw the towel in, and the doctor doesn't know it all, and they're not God, and God deserves all the glory and honor and praise for our son being healed from this cancer, because he didn't do it overnight, like a miraculous instant kind of thing, but he healed our son, no doubt, with wisdom of natural things that we could try with him. And the plant-based is awesome. Let me just tell you.
Say that again.
The plant-based diet has been phenomenal for him. He's on an organic um, formula for feeding tubes. It's called Liquid Hope,
Yeah.
and it's awesome. Like, it's the best thing out there for critically ill children. I think all of them should
And
have.
well, and not just children, for anyone who has to have
Right,
a feeding tube,
right, right.
or if you need meal replacement shakes, like what they would typically give Ensure or Boost to a
The
cancer
nasty.
patient. Liquid
Yeah.
Hope is an absolutely phenomenal alternative to that.
When we first got home, the first thing we switched before we left the doctors at St. Jude's, we said we wanted them to prescribe this Liquid Hope, because they wouldn't prescribe it when he was going through treatment. They wanted us to be on their Pediasure, you know, filler food or whatever it is, not real food. So we said we did it, basically we did it your way, and now we want to do it our way, and we want this prescription, please. We've tried to tell you that we wanted this nutrition, and you wouldn't give it to us before. Now we want it. We want to, so, we changed his diet right away. We did a lot of detoxing. We added lots of supplements, Kyo greens being one of them, for the, all the greens that he needed, that we couldn't always juice for him sometimes. So, and to help his bowels, we had to get him on probiotics right away because of all the antibiotics. If I wouldn't have found out about probiotics, I swear he would have went septic on us, because he was so backed up from all the morphine and the chemo. And,
Well,
you
it's
know,
not just antibiotics. Chemotherapy destroys the lining of your digestive tract and the good
right.
bacteria, and then antibiotics does even more damage. So it's a double whammy.
Oh yes, it was horrible. And I just thank God that I found out about it at the right time. I'm on it daily. And I give him extra sometimes, just because I know he needs to build that good bacteria back. So yeah, the probiotics, and then
So you were juicing for
I
him,
know,
right?
yeah, we were juicing before we got Liquid Hope. We would juice for him when we were at St. Jude's,
What kind of juices?
because we did all greens, mostly kale and spinach, whatever we could get our hands on that was organic and that was green.
Mm-hmm.
We juiced for him. So there was not always a recipe. We just kind of threw it in there, and he didn't have to taste it because he had the feeding tube, which
Yeah, that
was a
makes it
blessing.
easy. You can
It
put
does.
together a pretty funky blend of greens and just put it in the feeding tube.
That's right.
Okay, so you had the greens, and then you found about liquid hope, and you started doing that, and
Right.
then probiotics. Anything else?
Yes. We had always, there was a nurse up at Le Bonheur that had given us a big, thick book that was called Phoenix Tears or something. I'm sure you heard of Rick Simpson and all that.
Yep.
Um, so,
Cannabis oil.
right, she had told us about that, and we could never try it because we were in Tennessee and it wasn't legal there. And when he was sent home terminal, we were able to get here in Florida. And we did that, and it replaced all of his meds. He was on seizure medication too, because he had a history of seizures from the brain slash surgeries that he went through.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got him on the CBD oil, we followed the Rick's protocol,
Rick Simpson
uh,
protocol. Got it.
and then we kept him on a maintenance, which he's currently on a maintenance dose because he has seizure in his history, and every now and then he'll have seizure activity that'll pop up, and we don't want that to get out of control because when he was on his anti-seizing meds, he would still have seizures. And when we use the CBD oil, we found that it controls the seizures better and it has less harmful side effects. So,
That's great.
yeah, I'm just amazed. And it's all plants, you just think about God made all these plants and we don't realize the medicinal value until, something like this happens. And then you're kind of thrown into, do I use the pharmaceuticals that they keep giving me or try something natural and see if it works? So far, the natural stuff has worked far above and beyond all the pharmaceuticals he was, um, prescribed. So we're thankful that we found that. And, we've used everything from apricot kernels, and we've tried um, we use a lot of coconut oil with him. Um, we just have tried it. I don't think there's anything we have not tried um, that I've heard about that's been good for cancer patients, people recovering from uh, chemo treatment and trying to detox and things like that. So good nutrition is going to be the best thing for their children while they're going through those awful treatments. And even though the doctors tell you to feed them whatever they want, sugar feeds cancer, and kids shouldn't be eating Oreos and whatever they feel like it just because
M&Ms
they're
and ice cream.
right, right. And it's sad because that mother that when they were feeding my son steroids and my son craved pizza and Oreos and pancakes, I gave him whatever he wanted because I didn't know better. And now looking back, I regret that. And I wish somebody would have told that sugar fed cancer, because that would have been the last thing I would have been feeding my sick child. He's doing great for what he's been through. And he's going to reach when he gets older, and he's going to be a light for natural healing. I know this is our ministry now. I know that God is going to restore him, and he's going to be a testimony to parents and children going through this. And I just can't wait to be an encouragement to everyone. And it even says in the Bible, my people perish from lack of knowledge.
That's right.
So I just want to do the Lord's work. You know, I used to believe everything happened for a reason, even though I don't like to think that my son got cancer for a reason. But if it's to glorify God and tell about plants that God put here, good, then so be it. My son will make a full recovery and he will be well, and he will talk with his own mouth and tell people what the Lord has done for him. So, we went through a lot of suffering, but if in the end there's lots of joy and there's lots of people that find healing through this, then I am okay with the suffering that we had to go through to make a big difference, in other people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, right now he's still suffering from some of the after effects of treatment.
right, but he's not. Um, the CBD oil too helps with pain,
Mm-hmm.
so he is not. I make sure that he is comfortable. He's not doped up or anything. Like so many people get it wrong and they say, oh, I don't want to give that to my child because it'll make him high. He's not doped up. He's happy. Like if it makes him, if the worst side effect is it makes him giggle, then I'm okay with that because morphine was the worst of all the drugs, I think, because he would have morphine withdrawals and it would make him constipated and it was in his body.
Well, morphine, opiate-based pain medicine,
Right,
promotes metastasis, which a lot of
right,
people don't know that. But I mean,
right,
they give morphine to cancer patients, and it increases metastasis. It
right.
makes the cancer spread. Like
It just makes me sick.
doctors, I mean, the
Yeah.
research is clear. It's out there. It's published. I'll put links to it below the video in the show notes. I mean, it's crazy that people don't know this. I mean, not that people don't know it, that people aren't told this, and that
Right,
doctors
right,
aren't telling people this and demanding for alternatives.
right.
But yeah, it's just insane.
Yeah, it is. And my eyes are open to a lot of things now. Like before, I believed a lot of lies or I was misguided about a lot of things. And now my eyes are wide open and I try to share it with other people, but like I didn't write out a protocol for anybody to follow to help them because everybody's different. And if I wrote out all the things I did with, I'd probably feel over before they even began. And I wrote there was that did a blog post about children and how they're how they would when you want to decline chemotherapy, just don't is her little post. But she's talking about how moms say that they wouldn't put their child through that. They would do natural, they would do it all natural if they could. But CPS is and does take children away and force chemo on them. So I understand where she's coming from, but I want people to have a backup plan. The chemotherapy and the radiation fails their child, which it does. I don't know how much percentage of the time, but
Well, it depends
it
on the type of cancer, right?
that's right.
So, like you
That's
said
right.
earlier, and just to be clear for anyone that's you know doesn't know what we're talking about, childhood leukemia has a very high success rate. 90% live 10 years or more,
Right.
um, and so that's great. The cancer industry has made tremendous progress with childhood leukemia,
Right.
as well as some lymphomas and testicular cancer. So those cancers, they've done a great job at improving survival. But when
Right.
we're talking about solid tumor cancers, breast, colon, brain, liver, lung, ovarian, um, pancreatic, cervical, those type of cancers have had very little progress in the death
Right.
rate since the 1950s. There's been
Right.
very little survival progress. And
Right.
and I don't mean like 5 year survival. I mean the actual death rate. So, but most people don't know that, and they're not told that by their doctor when they're diagnosed. And you mentioned um, CPS, Child Protective Services, taking away children, and I've seen that happen multiple times. I mean, there's a few I can mention, and I'll link to these in the show notes. But there's a documentary film called "Cut, Poison, Burn" about a
Right.
child with brain cancer whose parents tried to get permission to get him off chemo and treat him naturally, and they were forced to treat him with chemo. And it's a brutal story, and he died as a result of chemotherapy. The chemo
Right.
killed him. And then Sarah Hirschberger was an Amish girl who her I interviewed her grandfather,
Mm.
and it's on the blog. But they she was diagnosed with I think it was a lymphoma, and it might have been leukemia. I can't remember, but I'll link to it. But anyway, yeah, they tried to come take her away, and her parents hit the road and went into hiding,
Right.
and took her down to Mexico and had her treated. And that was years ago. She's doing great. She's alive and well and doing fine.
Yeah.
And then there's one more story that Cassandra Callender was diagnosed with lymphoma at 17,
Mm.
17 years old, wanted to refuse chemotherapy, and her mother, they both agreed, and the medical establishment, the government, took her away from her parents, from her mom, and forced chemotherapy on her at 17 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just it's insane. And her cancer actually came back afterward. She had to go through all the treatments. She was a hostage in the hospital, and went through all the treatments, got remission temporarily, but then the cancer came back shortly thereafter, and she's still alive as
Right.
far as I know, and is doing some natural things. And I'm not sure what her status is at this point, but the reason I told that story is because I mean, how crazy is it that a girl could go get an abortion
Right.
without her parents' permission at 17,
Mm,
but she can't say no to chemotherapy? I
right.
mean, that's insane, completely
It,
insane. So that's the country we live in right
it's sad.
now.
Yeah.
Is there's a very um, there's a lack of medical freedom that
Right.
parents have, and even like I said, a 17-year-old teenager has over their own body, whether or not they want chemo or not. I mean, it's just
Right.
I have to stop talking or my head will explode. But
It's scary. Yeah.
anyway,
And in my opinion, it is by the grace of God that anybody makes it out of there alive. And I'm not laughing to be mocking. It is just amazing the children get there that take away their limbs and take away their eyes and debilitate them even more so than my son was debilitated. I mean, that fifth round almost proved fatal for our son, but it didn't, and he's making a recovery.
and
Anyway, that
so
is,
you had another scan last month, right? February 2017.
yes. On Valentine's weekend, we had to be at St. Jude's, and it was the best Valentine's present ever. Clear scans. Um, he's still blowing the doctors away and baffling them, and they don't understand because he's supposed to have signs of cancer coming back by now, and they still want to see him every 6 months. So we're happy to share his his clear results every time, and we don't have scan anxiety kind of like other parents do. Our worry is having to put him under, like they sedate him for the MRI, and they have to put an IV in, and that's the worst part of it because he got his port removed. So he has to be accessed every time through a regular IV, and that's a pain. But he does very well. Every time I think he gets stronger, and you know, it's been, I don't know how many MRIs later, and each one of them's been clean, so I cannot complain. To be able to share that with them and have that in their records that a boy sent home on hospice is now cancer free is like it's what pushes me through every trip we have to make up there.
Well, I know you're going to give a lot of parents hope and encouragement that they didn't even know was possible, right? I mean, just
I hope
sharing your
so.
story, and I just am so happy to know that he's doing well, and praise the Lord. I mean, what can you say? It's like just such an awesome thing, and looking forward to keeping up. Sunshine, thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you.
to share your story and Tyler's story. And we'll stay in touch, obviously. Friends, if you're watching this, please share it with anybody you know that has cancer or wants to learn and understand that there are more options out there and people are healing and getting well. Anyway, again, thank you everyone so much for watching, and we'll see you very soon. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.